Bang, bang, bang.
Juan Bautista council meeting is now in session. Staff with Vice Mayor Jordan, lead us Vice Mayor. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hooah. No thought for the day?
Mayor Edge. Here. Vice Mayor Jordan. Here. Councilmember DeVries. Councilmember Flores.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
A quorum is present. Okay.
Here comes Stan.
Come stand.
Thank you. Back up. Go.
So we are now going into public comment. Do we have any public comment? I do.
On items that are not on the agenda.
Sherry, Cal, Lidbecum. And I forgot to mention, nothing, the comment can only be nothing on the agenda. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council member. Just one is question, one is request. I just wonder whether there's a vector control for the city or it's a county thing. Because there's some water runoff in the new development area. Now I see a lot of mosquito going around. So
what control did you ask?
vector
Vector.
control. I don't know whether
Mosquito
city does
control.
that or county does that.
That would be
good.
county.
County. Okay.
Well,
And-
maybe a special district.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not very enough.
We'll look
And
into,
this-
we'll look into that.
The second thing is, we saw a lot of the pet owners walking their dogs at pets, and they're not picking after their pets. And so we saw some sign, and the male worker even talked to us, they sometimes step on it because all the brown mulch, it kind of blend in. So some places, some people put a little sign that it's against the law, it's $250 fine. But I only saw that somewhere, I don't know where that's from. Either the city has a little fine, or they have a little dog bag for people to pick up after usually the pet owners should carry their own bags. But I have seen people not carry any bags, just let it So that's just a concern or request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to see other
Yeah.
members from that
Any
community
other
come over.
public comment? That's all I have. Okay, so we close public comment. We'll go on to consent items. All matters listed under the consent agenda may be enacted by one motion authorizing actions indicated for those items so designated. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the City Council, a staff member, or citizen. So,
I make a motion to approve all consent items.
I second that.
okay, we have the motion. Do we
Second over here.
second?
I second it.
So
No
Leslie,
discussion.
and
Call for the question.
call, any discussion? Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So now we go on to presentations, informal items, and reports. A presentation is our Community Prepared for a Disaster by Gary Byrne.
Ha, you blew it.
Did I? Can you put it back for me? Thank you. He's my tech person. I am not a tech. Hi, Mom. I'm terrible. This wasn't there. Thank you very much. First of all, City Council, thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I had the pleasure of giving this presentation to the Business Council, and our mayor said to me, Gary, would I be interested in doing it to you? And I said, absolutely. Why are we doing the presentation? So the question is, are we prepared for a disaster? A lot of times in San Benito County we think of earthquake, but as you know, there's a lot of other disasters. You took out the virus at the moment, that's a natural disaster that's affecting many, many communities. Are we prepared for it? So the Community Foundation has started a fund, a disaster preparedness fund, for San Benito County to protect us financially. So I'm going to share a few slides with you, and then I'd love if you have any questions. But before I even do that, the heart of our community is our businesses. And a lot of times we think of big businesses, Apple and all that sort of stuff, but 50% of our people in our community are employed by small businesses. And those small businesses are most affected by any sort of natural disaster. I'm going to concentrate a little bit on earthquakes, but I'll go from there. So 99% of our companies are small businesses in San Benito County. 99%. 50% of our employees work for those small companies. If a natural disaster happens, 40% of businesses will never reopen. Imagine that, 40% will never reopen, okay? After 1 year, okay, 25% more will not reopen, okay? And 3 years later, 70% of businesses without a plan will fail. What's the cost to be closed? Small business cost, $3,000 a day. A large business cost is $23,000 a day. So, how can we prepare so that doesn't happen? So let's look at a few slides about our community, if I get this right. Okay, are we ready for disaster? We can't answer that. Community Foundation, we don't do programs. You run the city of San Juan Bautista. Hollister runs their city. The county runs there. Are we talking together? Are we ready? Are we prepared? That's the challenge, okay? Who is our community? They're our customers, our employees. It's our livelihood. They pay our taxes. Look at one of the biggest influences after a natural disaster. What happens in a local jurisdiction? Property taxes fall, okay? How long do they fall for normally? 10 years. 10 years. That'll have a big impact on your budget, the money that's coming to you. So, how can we take action? Community Foundation, we have decided to set up a disaster preparedness fund. And why are we doing this? Because, Dan, yes.
Father Gary, can you?
Oh, I got promoted again. Sorry.
Yeah, Father, no more.
I know. I'm dating myself.
Church That's right.
Gary, can you define the word disaster in your presentation? Sure. What is a disaster as you're going through these slides? What is a disaster?
Okay, we're talking about something that is designated as a federal disaster. Okay, so when,
So how is it designated, so it would be something that was designated by the governor
yes,
or the president as being a federally or state recognized disaster?
yeah.
So we're talking about what, massive wildfires?
Well, you're talking about an earthquake, you're talking about a
Big
wildfire, you're
earthquake.
talking about, it could be any, it could be if you have a major spill on one of our highways of chemicals, that could be declared a natural disaster and a federal disaster.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're thinking this fund, you'll see as we go through the presentation, there was one time when, like our last disaster here in the county was the flooding, okay? That was not designated a federal disaster.
On Lover's Lane, that was not?
No FEMA money
But
came
that
in.
was pretty massive.
It was, but it wasn't a federal disaster. It cost the county $1.5 million.
Right.
So if that happened in San Juan Bautista, you're on the hook. I'm just sharing. It's not always easy to what designates. So we're talking at the moment, not for a small disaster, but a major disaster. That's why we're doing this.
I'm
Yeah.
about to ask
No,
the
no,
question. I'm
please.
about to ask the question.
Yeah, ask, yeah. So, what are we? Our community is our priority, and as a leadership organization, we have 153 nonprofits who serve San Benito County. We want to try to get our nonprofits ready. The food bank has a satellite office here. Okay, food bank will be seriously affected. How do we get food to people? Shelter will be seriously affected. How do we shelter people? Simple little things like that. We're trying to coordinate with our county, with our two cities. How do we prepare as a community? It's as simple as that. Okay, so our last big federal disaster was Loma Prieta. 30 years ago, we actually had hoped to do this presentation on October 17th. It didn't quite happen, you know. But, okay, 7.1 magnitude. And I found a phenomenal statistic, you know, and this is just for San Benito County. Do you know what our cost was then? What the actual cost to the community was? Anyone put a guess on it?
20 million.
Yeah, you know, 55. Okay, but in those days, 55 million was a huge amount of money. In today's dollars, $113 million.
Wow.
$113 million.
And
That's
that cost was to buildings and infrastructure? And
everything.
Everything.
And a lot of it was city and county costs, mains. Now, we're very lucky. 49 people were injured in San Benito County. We had no fatalities. So in many ways, we got away very, very easily, okay? Residents were without electricity for just a couple of days, and they were only without water for 2 days. So there was a huge step up. Here's some, for those who weren't there, 55 million, 170 homes destroyed, 100 water mains were broken. 100 water mains, okay? How would you like that, boss? No fun there. 4th Street, Caputo Building, you know? This is just purely for people who weren't there, nothing more than that. So our last one was Lover's Lane, winter 2017. 49 residents were evacuated at 4 a.m. in the morning, okay? It cost the county a huge amount of money, okay? The disaster did not meet the threshold of FEMA, okay? Federal financial assistance. Emergency work that the county paid out of pocket in the next couple of days was $409,000. Overall, they paid $1.8 million in costs. Okay? So phenomenal. You think of it. Here's a picture. $1.9 million estimated county costs. 19 homes. Another great picture there. Here's what's fascinating. Animals. San Juan Bautista, your big animal community. Where do your animals go? Okay, what happens? 340 went to Bellotto. Some of them were there till May.
Wow.
4 months, okay? Nobody charged them. Bellotto looked after them, okay? So could you imagine on a massive scale, what do we do with our animals, especially our large animals?
Who paid for Bellotto?
The actual fairgrounds.
The Fairgrounds Committee?
Yeah, the 33rd Ag District paid.
They absorbed that cost?
They absorbed that cost.
Wow.
Phenomenal. Absolutely. I mean, you know, I'd hate to know just the cost.
Right.
So, the last major fire, or major earthquake that we had was this fire, the Camp Fire, okay? Then we're going to go to the next one that happened right afterwards. So, this was a massive fire. Now, we say in San Benito County it won't happen. They also thought that up there too. Okay, that's the sad part is. Deadliest, most destructive wildfire in California history, okay? Look at this picture. 18,000 structures destroyed. You know, schools. That hospital was the largest employer in town. Incredible. Okay, so here's just 4 natural disasters that happened. I'm going to come back to one of them. So Shasta, the car fire, the Camp Fire at North Valley, which is the largest one, the Napa earthquake, and we'll look at that in a moment, and then the Napa fires, okay? And this is just some of the money that they took in and the money they spent out. Napa, and I pick on Napa because it's very similar to us, and believe it or not, in demographics and also in size. Very, very similar. Napa Community Foundation, I found a typo here. I just saw it today. So the August 24th, 2014 was the Napa earthquake. How many of you remember it? Okay, I do because I'm involved with community foundations, but I asked most people, they don't remember, it didn't affect them. Relatively speaking, it was a small earthquake. Relatively speaking, okay? It had a huge impact. 2 days later, that's September 26th. It wasn't, it was August 26th. They had $10 million. The Vintners Association wrote them a check. Do you know why? Because the Vintners Association lost hundreds of their workers. They left the county. The buildings were red tagged, right? Some of them were in sub housing. Some of them were in rentals. Some of them were in not bungalows, what you call them, in trailer parks. Okay, they all picked up, went to the valley, and got a job. The Vintners, just before September, when they crushed the wine.
Yeah, that's middle season for them.
Huge impact. So the Vintners gave the Community Foundation $10 million, which meant the Community Foundation didn't have to do any fundraising. They went straight away into helping the people get back in their houses, helping small businesses, and they had a huge fight with the federal government. It took them a long time for it to become a federal disaster. A huge fight, okay? And FEMA ended up, they designated it a federal, the county got reimbursed, the city got reimbursed. But listen to this, many businesses applied for FEMA loans. Do you know how many got them? 0, right? Too much paperwork, too difficult. It was neighbor helping neighbors, it was city helping cities, and it was a community foundation giving people money to get back into the thing as soon as possible. So, as a disaster relief fund, what are we? To go back. In Napa, 315 structures were red tagged, and 500 were yellow tagged. Okay? A huge amount. That's a lot of structures for a small community. So what do? We'll give a grant, immediate term, short term, and long term. And these are some of the things that we'll do. But you're much more interested in who will support. So go to the next one, the immediate needs. Red Cross, local parks, local churches, food bank, neighbors helping neighbors in Romas, Hovinus, Bellado Event Center. These need money and support right away. So we're in the process of working with these nonprofits. So you don't want to come to us for a grant. We want to be able to give a grant to you immediately and not worry about it, knowing that you're already vetted. That's the most important thing. What's the next group? Short-term needs. CSDC, housing. Okay? Another housing. YMCA, Habitat, Partnership for Children, Emmaus House, Sun Street Centers, right? That's the immediate need right after the earthquake. And probably the most important one and the long-term one is for resilience for the community is your long-term needs, okay? Start off at the bottom. San Juan Bautista Community Business Association, you're very familiar with them. The Arts Council, the Seniors, Chamber of Commerce, Business Council, Downtown Association, Youth Alliance. Any nonprofit can help people in the long term in our community. That's the challenge for every community, you know. Napa had this $10 million. They gave away X number of dollars immediately. They were left over with $2 or $3 million after 2 or 3 years. They went back to the Vintners Association and said, here's your money back. And the Vintners Association said, absolutely not. Keep it for the next disaster because it is going to happen. And be prepared. You know, they have taught us, the other community foundations around the state of California, how unprepared we were. We thought it was going to be so easy to set up a disaster preparedness fund, do an MOU with the county, meet with all the others. It has been a huge amount of work just to get it going, you know. And we don't have a Vintners Association with $10 million in the bank, okay? So that's our challenge. Let me just keep going here. So, actually, before I go there was one other thing. Somebody asked me how we're going to do this. We have some large employers in town. I'm going to pick on Casa de Fruta, right? Casa de Fruta employ nearly 500 people total, right? 270 of them live in San Benito County. So we hope to go to that family and say, hey, we'd like you to make a pledge to the disaster fund. So when it does happen, you will have talked about the gift, made a decision on the gift, and just say they pledge $500,000. Okay? We would ask for maybe 5% or 10% already to be transferred, so the wire transfer is set up on your books. Very simple. And then the family will meet right afterwards. It is a federal disaster now. We know how serious it is. Transfer the money. That's what we're in the process of doing. So we're doing this presentation. That's why we did it to the Business Council. We have some other entities that the hospital wants to hear about this too. Hospital employs 500 people. If they go down, if they lose staff, it's so hard to get hospital staff. If people move out of the area, tremendously challenging. So I'm going to stop there and entertain any questions. Yes, Dan.
Okay, so, Gary, I've known you for a long time. I've worked with the Community Foundation, as you know, with my own stuff. Normally, my impression was that the model was that donors provide money to you into estate planning, for estate planning purposes. That endowment, you invest, and then out of that interest that's earned on that endowment, you grant that out back to the community. Is this that, or is this something different?
No, this is not an endowed account. This is a pass-through fund. So in other words, this will be money in and money out. We have a lot of funds like that. And why we're doing this is that we learned, particularly from the other community foundations, there is a huge amount of fraud as soon as a natural disaster happens. Nonprofits' web pages get hijacked. Money goes out of the state, and hundreds of people are inundated with all these asks, many of them bogus. So we want to make sure, when there's a natural disaster, the food bank doesn't have the time or energy to do a fundraising campaign. Hey, we're in the middle of an earthquake, we need money. We want to be able to give them a grant. This is what you need, this is what we know you need. So our aim is to bring this money in and send the money out. This will not be an endowed fund. Now, we will send an email out to all our fund holders who have endowed funds with, would you like to give a grant to this fund so we can give back to the community?
So
Absolutely.
when you're bringing the money in, it's going to sit in an account and garner interest?
Oh yeah, but don't forget, we're only asking for maybe 5%. Our dream would be, we just want the transactional details easy to happen. So if the hospital commits $500,000, we would ask for a $25,000 grant up front so they have that wire transfer ready to go. So when their board meets right after a disaster, yes, let's give them the rest of the money, it's all ready to go. Yes, it would sit in a checking account.
So you collect 5%.
Whatever the actual want to pledge, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
they
up to
decide
them.
what they want to pledge,
Yeah.
and then you collect 5%. And then once the disaster happens, then they funnel the money.
Yes, yeah. Because we know what businesses in town, like True Leaf here is a great example, okay? They're a family-run business, okay? They're out of Salinas, but they've got a board of directors. So the reality is we want the board to have that conversation before the disaster, make a decision. Oftentimes they'll up their gift afterwards, that's not on board. Just say True Leaf decides, okay, we're going to pledge $100,000. We'll give 5% now, it's a $5,000 grant. It goes out, goes into the account and what have you. The disaster happens, their board of directors meet and say, let's give them that $100,000, or if it's a really bad disaster, let's give them more. We just want the mechanism in place because then we want to be able to get it back to the nonprofits. Nothing more than that. Yeah.
Can the board of True Leaf say, can they meter how much goes out?
Of course. Oh, they can meter how much they give us. They cannot dictate to us what goes out.
Once it's given to you,
Our job
and
is to get it out.
your spending
Yeah.
is up to you.
Yeah, totally up to us. That's the difference with a community foundation. We got variance power. As long as it's spent on disaster relief to help our community and resilience, then it's fine. Yeah.
So it's just a means by which these companies can then provide for disaster relief in an accountable way
Yes.
because of the fraud and other stuff that you spoke
Well,
about earlier.
because of the fraud, but also we hope to have MOUs with all these nonprofits that we can give. We already give grants to all those nonprofits that you see.
But that's on the endowment side.
No, not necessarily. No, we do a lot of pass-through grants. We give out. We have a lot of donors that have pass-through money. That money comes in and money goes out. So it's not just on the endowment side. No, last year we granted out $7 million. Okay, our total endowment is $12 million. Yeah, so more money goes out than stays with us, which is great. That's what you want. Yeah. So you just look at it here, our next door neighbor. If there's a major earthquake, if the mission is out of commission, if the historical part is out of commission, okay? Why do people come to San Juan Bautista? So our job is to try to get these two things up and running as quickly as possible, just to bring tourism back to the community. We have an old downtown, historical old downtown. It's going to be affected tremendously by a very serious earthquake. How can we get money to them so that they can be on-red tagged, get in their building and get it fixed? That's our challenge, to get the businesses up, because a lot of people own businesses downtown. They might give up, no insurance, walk away. And that's happened in many other communities. Yeah. It's something more for us to think about. How's it it's going to happen. It's been 30 years since the last big one. Something's going to happen. Are we prepared? Is the city, what's your contingency? One thing that we're asking all the nonprofits to do is look at a secondary building. Community Foundation, we've got a place up in the mountains. Okay, a barn up in the mountains, got great internet and what have you. So if our building goes down tomorrow, we will move up there. Another thing is, I have an arrangement with the Santa Cruz Community Foundation. If we're a total disaster up here, we can operate out of Santa Cruz because everything is remote. Everything's in the cloud for us. Okay, we need to have communications. John?
No.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were.
Just-
Hands up. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Really
thank you.
appreciate it. Any other questions? I will send this over, the slide presentation, so you have it all in your inbox, so you can have it.
One last question, which is the bottom line. Is there an ask to the city of San Juan Bautista?
No, there's not. The City of San Juan Bautista, my ask to you is for you to agendize it down the road and say, is this something that you're interested in supporting? It's something that I get with your city manager. We're going to do the same presentations to the City of Hollister. Yeah, yeah.
So right now, it's just an introduction to this concept,
That's all I'm doing.
and then down the line, we might expect it to show up as a budget item.
Well, as a budget item is to, what resilience, what reserve do you have to help our community get back on its feet? Simple as that. Yeah. Yeah, this is not a money ask today. It really is just introduction. This is what we're doing. We're still in the process of setting everything up. I'll give you a good example, small little things like our website. As soon as a disaster happens, we have a whole new page, okay, that's going to go up to allow donations to come to us. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
I was with the food bank from Monterey, and they said when the last big fires happened, do you remember the big fires a few years ago? Their page got hijacked. Okay?
Ah.
Someone hijacked their web page. So all the donations, they don't know where it went.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Oh, that's terrible.
it does. But that, we've heard in the not, that happens a lot. Very easy to do.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's too bad.
yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay,
Okay, well, thank you,
Thank you
Gary.
so much.
Thank you so much.
hold this out. Put this back. I'm not a techie person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we go on to CERT training with Michael. I can never remember how to
Linthicum.
pronounce. What is it?
Linthicum.
Linthicum?
Linthicum.
Linthicum. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
I've been called worse. Mayor, City Council, staff, and visitors. What I was asked to do here tonight was to provide a CERT briefing, which is a Community Emergency Response Team, to the City Council with the intent of, not asking for money, but asking for support in that we would like to start a CERT team here in the city. You've already been briefed on some of the big pictures of what happens when there's a major disaster. I'll just point out that for the Loma Prieta earthquake, I was deployed with the military in the Bay Area to support that adventure. We serviced areas such as Santa Cruz and the entire peninsula, providing assistance to those people, but there was absolutely no talk of coming to small towns such as Watsonville, Hollister, San Juan Bautista. It's about bang for the buck. During the flooding at Lover's Lane, I was actually mobilized and deployed with the county CERT team to go out there and assist in that endeavor to help the local individuals. I was retired by then, the Army didn't need me anymore. Okay, where's my arrows? Okay, what is CERT? It educates for disaster preparedness and provides basic disaster response skill sets. Also, CERT members, what we try and do is train them to help themselves, help their families, help their neighbors, and then if they so choose, to assist in helping the community. And that's the bottom line for what the CERT program is. Where did it come from? In 1985, I'm sure you're familiar with the little area called Los Angeles. The LA Fire Department determined that they're just, and they have a huge force down there, not counting our whole one engine up here that we have. They knew in a major disaster they wouldn't have enough assets to go around. So by training people, one, to take care of themselves, and two, to have these CERT teams as a supplemental force. They're not firemen, they're not policemen, they're not sheriffs, they're not EMTs, but what they do is they provide other services that are a little less critical so that the people with the trained abilities can go focus in on what they need to focus in on. They didn't have a program completely solidified, and in 1987, the Whittier Narrows earthquake caused huge widespread damage and devastation in the LA basin. At that time, the LA Fire Department decided to completely formalize this and created a disaster preparedness division, of which they created a CERT program. Somewhere along the line, a few years after that, FEMA got their hands on it and said, hey, this is a really good program. Of course, we all know what happens each time an echelon of government grabs onto something. You see a lot of changes and permeations that come out of it. Well, what actually happened is, almost in total, they accepted the program that the LA Fire Department had to come up with, and then put the FEMA logo on it, just like on my slides. They adopted that program and then sent it out. Currently it's in, I think, 47 states. It's also gone international. The whole idea being everybody's trained the same way, so that way a CERT member trained in Wisconsin is trained the same way are here, so there's complete theoretical interoperability. The CERT hierarchy, of course, starts with the Department of Homeland Security, and in this case would come all the way down to San Juan Bautista. The CERT basic training content is a 20-hour course consisting of 9 different units of training. As you can see here, the first one is just disaster preparedness. One of the things that we like to do is try and get people prepared to take care of themselves and their families. For example, all your city employees, they should be designated as disaster service workers. But if they have issues at home during a disaster, they may not make it in for a while, because they got to take care of their families, their children, their adults, their seniors, whatever the case may be. Then we have a unit for fire safety, two units for medical disaster operations, which consists of about 6 to 7 hours of training. Once again, we're not training people to be EMTs, but we're training them to do a lot of the little stuff, because guess what? AMR is not going to be there. The fire department's not going to be there. There's just not enough resources to go around for non-life-threatening injuries. Then, of course, we took a little bit about light search and rescue. The CERT organization itself, how does it fit into the community? How does it fit into the big picture? Who do we report to? How does it function? We even have a unit on disaster psychology, because we all know that for people who go help, this includes our friends at the Red Cross and all those other people that go to disasters, the individuals that go to them sometimes have a little post-traumatic stress issues. So we have modules on that. And we have a separate module for terrorism and CERT. Once again, the CERT's job is not to combat terrorism, but once again, these are FEMA slides. And to teach the course, you have to teach all the FEMA slides. We'll get into the revisions to it later. And then, of course, then there's a course review, and then actually a disaster simulations. If you have any questions about the content of this course, you can ask Mary, because she went to the course that I taught in 2015. Okay, and how do you start a CERT program? First, you assess the community needs. Well, I think we've already talked a little bit about, are we really prepared? I would venture to say no. I was in the reading room earlier this evening, and I noticed a copy of the community disaster plans, dated 1997. I know they've been updated since then. So anyway, you assess your needs. Do we need it? Well, we have earthquakes, potential fires, flooding, things such as the coronavirus, which everybody talks about. And the reason they talk about that is because a lot of people have died from it, but it's the ratio of people who contract it versus what die. Because when you compare it to, we're at what, about 15, 16,000 that have died from the flu in America so far. So when you put it on a scale, but based on percentages, it's the coronavirus. But what do you do? So there is a need there, even if it's just to train people to take care of themselves. Because if everybody in this town took care of themselves, then the only thing you would have to respond to is those critical emergencies, life-threatening things, fires, and that sort of activity. Identify resources. Resources for us would be things like the fire department, the sheriff's department, AMR, and as you well know how thin they are already. So there's not much to go around. What's the size of your city staff? Can they help the whole city?
7 currently.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's not your fault.
There used to be 8.
So you're just a little bit bigger than the county roads department. You have to gain support, which is y'all, and recruit participants. Of course, I've got a little advantage to that. Right now, up in the San Juan Canyon, there's a lot of us that are already CERT trained, and we've created our own little Canyon Safe organization because we were tired of waiting around for the county to help us out. So we actually practice for fires. We have emergency escape routes, and you know, we actually practice those things. We actually practice communication skills every week with ham radios. And those people I could bring into the fold here in San Juan Bautista because most of us are right there in the canyon. Acquire training materials. Most of the training materials are printed materials that we actually get from California State. Equivalent to OES, yeah. And then this is what I was talking about, tailor the training. We cannot delete the FEMA slides, but what we do is we look at the community needs and then add to that what specifically we need to talk about. You know, do we need to talk about the water situation and nitrates and being shut off? How do we handle those kind of situations versus, you know, something on a national scale? So we tailor the slides to fit our specific needs and issues that we have here in San Juan Bautista. And of course, then establish a training cadre. Obviously, I'm a CERT train the trainer. We also have another readily available CERT trainer, Tony Cannavaro. We also use typically folks from AMR to teach some of the medical classes. We use the fire department. Well, we had to teach the fire class. And so there's a lot of involvement from people that we can get already that are here locally. And the answer is the cost is virtually nothing because we don't get paid. We're all volunteers. I know, it's free. I know you'd hate that one. What can the program do? As I talked about it before, we have initial basic training for city employees. Because once again, if they can take care of their business at home and get to work to start working on the issues that you need them to be working on to keep the city up and running, so much the better. We can train and prepare the citizens of San Juan Bautista and neighboring areas. And I say neighboring areas because when we train other areas like San Juan Canyon people, like people from Aromas and Prunedale and the outlying areas, then when we have a problem and they don't, we can actually get assistance from those CERT people to come help us. And it says group participation is not mandatory. That is true. There's two. Some CERT organizations have what's called a catch and release. We bring them into the classroom, we train them, and you just go home and take care of yourself and your families. And then we also have another group that looks at it from train and retain, which means everybody that comes through, I want to be part of my team. Well, the reality is you're going to get a mix of some of those. Probably about 25 to 30% of people go to the training you'll see again in other events. And there's reasons for that, is some people just want to be able to take care of themselves and their families. And two, a lot of people I've trained here in this county are county and city employees already, because in a disaster, they're going to be going to do their regular jobs, which is the same thing. It all helps the greater good. Okay, initial, oops, wrong button. Yeah. Training for employees, training to prepare citizens, establish your team of trained members, and the group participation is number one. And that's what I was talking about. Family, assist neighbors, and then CERT team participation. Disaster preparedness training is what we do. In most cases, in most cities, in most counties, CERT members are designated by the convening authority as disaster service workers, so that when a real disaster hits, you can bring us into your fold and use us to assist in that endeavor. Other things we can do is something as simple as crowd control, traffic control. Once again, we're not cops. We don't have badges and guns, so if somebody wants to go through our checkpoint without doing what they're supposed to be doing, but anyway, it adds help. Communications. Everybody's making the assumption that when the next big earthquake hits, that you're going to be able to do electronic funds transfers, that you're going to be able to use your phones, that you're going to be able to use your computers. Maybe that's not so. Remember 2015, what happened in Morgan Hill, California? Somebody cut the backbone to the internet, the telephones. They had no cell phone coverage. They had no 911 service. They had nothing. Complete dead space. Yeah, it was at the same time they took pot shots with AK-47s at the power grid station south of Bernal. What do you do? How do you handle emergencies in your city? Well, what Morgan Hill did is they called up their CERT and ham radio people, and they set up stations inside the town and then put relays to the fire department and or like where AMR was at, and created a emergency network so that people had problems, they could make it happen. Once again, it's got to be part of the plan, because the issue in Morgan Hill was probably 90% of people that lived there didn't know that those people were there out on the streets to help them. They saw them as they were driving around. Then there's the issue of, do you mobilize the team or not mobilize the team? But we can still do other events, like work at public events, like assist at the local runs, for both communications, and not just crowd control, but just as observers, communicate with the radios. We can also assist in recruiting efforts, that's specifically to recruit more people to come to the CERT program, because once again, if we got everybody trained to take care of themselves, life would be much, much simpler. Actual emergencies we can be mobilized for. We can do shelter operations. For example, the county CERT team, we did shelter operations several times at the Veterans Memorial building in Hollister, with supplies brought in from the American Red Cross. When we did those, all those supplies, of course, came from Santa Cruz, which was somewhat problematic. If you have a major disaster, they're not going to be able to get here. My understanding is Red Cross has pre-positioned some stuff here in the county. I don't know if any of it's here in San Juan Bautista vicinity, but you still need equipment. We can also be trained to do feeding operations, as well as light search and rescue, to assist in getting a hold of people and making sure they're safe and okay. What does San Juan Bautista need to provide? See some dollar signs there. No, we're not looking for money. What we have to have is, for example, a training location. We have to have a place to train, some place where we have audio-visual capabilities and that kind of stuff for the basic training itself, which is the 20-hour course. And then we typically do monthly training meetings, the sustainment training and that kind of stuff. We have alert mobilization plan for the CERT, which is something that you can integrate into your updating of the emergency plans for the city. In other words, who makes that call? City manager, city council, whatever. That's up to you to decide. We just need to know how that's going to function and how we fit in, and who do we report to when we show up. It's some pretty basic stuff, but it needs to be considered, and it feeds into the current need to update that plan. We also need a staging area, such as the community center, someplace where we can all go to, assuming the building's still standing after the earthquake. And that's why we know we have primary and alternate locations to do the site things. And some type of identification card. The big key is we need a designated CERT coordinator. Let's see, what's that? That is somebody who works for the city and can fill out the little forms on the California CERT website to say that we are forming a team here. Has to be an employee. I can't do that for you. And you can develop that CERT coordinator into whatever you want them to do, but that's the bottom line. To create a CERT team, we have to register with the state of California, and it has to be done with the blessing of the city and somebody as the CERT coordinator. Of course, the city would have ownership of the program. I'm just a trainer. It's your program, and I'm a tool. We would also appreciate any specific guidance or content input, i.e. things that are specific to the needs of our community. Some limited administrative support if we needed, some phone calls made, for example, to coordinate with the fire department or the AMR or something like that, or delegate that authority back down to us, that's fine too. A small materials storage area for training supplies. Remember all those manuals I was talking about? Where you tend to order a lot more than you need because you don't know who's going to show up, so you have to have someplace to keep all that stuff. And like I said, with administrative support, sometimes coordinating with outside agencies, such as the state of California. And I'm sure there's other things. That's my caveat for if I forgot something. Okay, what do I bring to the table? Experience. I went through the CERT training program 2014, went to the CERT Train the Trainer course with the state of California to become a trainer, and then went to FEMA in Emmitsburg to do the federal level training and the CERT managers course. In latter 2014, we started the county CERT program, and I got that started, trained the first 7 classes, and we had a sustaining program at least for the 3 years that I was in charge of that program. So it's not something I haven't done before. It is something I've done before, and I can also obviously be the lead trainer, which is a requirement. To be the lead trainer for the CERT program, you have to be Train the Trainer certified. Right now we have 2 of us. Hopefully we'll get more. And also I can provide team leaders for events / mobilizations or whatever events and activities we have. My basic experience, I spent almost 33 years playing Army, 4 at the Academy and 29 in the Army, doing various roles and functions. Most of your incident command system protocols, NIMS, that was all stolen from the Army. So I'm somewhat familiar with how all those things operate. Of course, I'm not always in with the specific nomenclature you guys use because the Army calls things differently, but it's the same basic concepts for how we do that. My contact information.
I have a question.
Questions? That's where
You
we're at.
mentioned EMTs. Do you actually have some EMTs in your group? Or
No. In the
Nurses
past,
from the
though, I've actually had 4 nurses come through my program. We've had 2 mayors, one acting mayor at the time, and then one that became mayor. I've had city council members from both cities come through my program.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because I used to be an EMT 1A, but it expired. So how do I go back if I want to recertify?
That's an inherently good question. One that has nothing to do with the CERT program, no. We don't certify EMTs. We just use them for
Do you
training
know
our
who
people.
does, though? That's what I'm asking.
Well, the fire chief can answer that for
Fire
you.
Yeah,
chief?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. The fire chief probably has a real good handle on that one.
So Mike, when Rick and I took this CERT training in 2015, I think you
Yes.
said, we got our certificates and we went through the whole thing. How many months was it? It seemed
Well,
like was a
it
lot.
depends, and that's the negotiable piece. It depends on when you can get people to show up. The FEMA guidance is to have 2 or more instructors present at all times with a class to student ratio, or instructor to student ratio of 15 to 1. So we can hold classes any time.
But what I'm saying is, how long is the training?
Well, the training is
20
about 20 hours, but it can be packaged. For example, you can do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the following Saturday. I've done it where it's once a week for about 3.5 hours for 8 weeks. I've also,
I think that's what it was.
yeah, that's what you did.
Yeah.
The class after that, I did it twice a week after normal work hours so that people could come in and get here from the Bay Area. So it only took a month to do it. Some programs actually do it over 2 weekends and use the weekend time. But it all depends on, when you ask people if you want to come to the training, which model works best for you. Some people despise giving up their weekends for anything other than family stuff, let's call it, or personal stuff. And some people say, well, I'm too tired by the time I get done with the commute. But once again, we still have a lot of local people. When we first put out the hey, who wants to attend, we'll say, what is your preference? You know, Saturday, or twice a week.
So where do we go from now? Do you meet with our city manager and he tries to find a location for you to have your training sessions? Is there a cost? I can't remember if we paid back then.
No, you didn't pay us a dime. There is no actually. I believe in the no cost, and there's some pluses and minuses to that. Some CERT programs charge people $50 to come because they find that when they charge people, they actually finish the course. I've had a lot of people start and not finish because they got other things to do. That's life. You don't want to finish the course, not my problem. The bag. Some courses charge the $50, but then at the end,
But wait,
surprise.
there's more.
There's more. They give you a CERT bag filled with all sorts of goodies.
That's what we have in my
Yes.
closet.
Yes, that's what you have in the closet.
Better change the batteries.
They're bigger and heavier because I have a lot of stuff that didn't come for free. Yeah, that's my little teddy bear.
And I got my shirt.
correct.
But- Yeah, but we didn't pay for any of that stuff.
I understand that, and that's because the county came up with some money to purchase those.
Oh, okay.
So if the council decides, hey, we want to spend $35, $40, whatever, on each CERT bag to give to the graduates, that's up to you. I'm saying we can run the program without giving away the CERT bags if you don't have the money for it. And that's why it can be cost-free, because if you go home, you can create your own bag. I mean, you've seen what's in them. Gloves, goggles, knee pads, the eye protection, the personal protective equipment, all that kind of stuff. A little bit of 100-mile-an-hour tape, a little bit of, it's like, you can do that on your own. You don't have to have the bag provided. But some people use that $50 to buy the bag. But a lot of CERT programs, I believe, do it the way I like to do it, and that's free to the students.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do get
Oh,
a
yeah,
cool
and
green
you
helmet.
gotta have the helmet. You gotta have the green helmet. Oh, the vest?
And the vest for CERT.
Yeah, I have my vest.
Yeah.
My vest
So-
and my shirt.
So we can do that sort of thing, or we could maybe, in line of disaster preparedness, hit up the community foundation for the funding of some basic supplies for the CERT program.
Lots
So-
of money.
Yeah.
So Dan, did you have, I think Dan has some questions for you.
I have a few.
Okay.
So, as I understand the concept, then, once certified, a citizen of this community, and I'm going to paraphrase, I don't mean this paraphrasing to be offensive in any way, but once certified, a community member would then be a helper to first responders, traditional firefighters, law enforcement,
Yes.
CAL FIRE. These people would be helpers.
Right.
Yes, but potentially they can do.
ID card.
Oh, this is what the ID cards I sent out.
Volunteers.
You get a vest, you get a helmet,
The-
an ID card.
Yeah, that's one thing we
Flashlight.
would like to see is some form of identification that identifies you as being a certain member of the great city of San Juan Bautista. What happens when we get mobilized is really up to you to decide. We can be a force multiplier for this gentleman, because he's going to be really busy in that emergency time. Or if there's some other disaster that he says, oh, well, the fire department needs some people to go feed them. Which, by the way, through the Cienega fire, that's exactly what we did. Certain people were called up. Our job isn't to go out and fight a fire. We don't have fire trucks and hoses and all those great little toys that they do. But we can help their base station getting food to them and get everything set up so they can rotate through faster, so that they can stay on the fire line. But that's totally up to, the utilization of the team is totally up to the city.
It's
And in
really-
the absence of the CERT volunteers, isn't the traditional model to use what they call the incident command?
Right.
Well, sure,
Right.
the incident command system is something that, I don't know what your plan says, but
Our plan is not as old as the one that you saw, thank you. It's 2015. Fire chief and I reviewed it a month ago. So if we haven't done our housekeeping, I apologize.
no, I'm talking,
Please.
it's the county plan. not
Okay,
your-
yeah, I just don't want the community and everyone watching to think that our plans are that outdated. It's not. so I'm being patient.
Yeah, so the incident command system is just that. That's for you guys to figure out, okay, what's the pecking order, and of course, based on his huge staff of 7 people. And then you'll have the extra support from the sheriff's department, from the fire department, from AMR, whatever you can get out of them.
It depends on the type of emergency, Dan.
No,
Wildfire, your fire chief's in charge. You know, terrorism, your police chief's in charge, you know.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, but it just seems, the reason I ask these questions is because it seems like there would be a huge, huge premium, if not a necessity, to have a program like this
Oh,
interact
terrific
with-
resource, terrific
interact
resource.
with
I totally
the
agree.
fire department and the police department, San Diego County Sheriff's Department, because you're gonna be coming alongside them. Let's say we say yes, we want to implement this into our community. You're gonna be working alongside those guys.
Sure.
So I think that those partnerships, they were from
Absolutely,
Saturday,
absolutely.
right?
Partnerships. Well, okay, so
Can I get a
there's,
big pad of paper with a pen?
so there's an earthquake, the building official says knock on doors, you know.
Pardon
There's an earthquake, the building official says we need help knocking on doors. We need to make sure, you know, someo's in that house.
100%.
And that they delegate to your CERT crew who's got this special training and the discipline to follow the chain of command.
But we
It's
have
it's a wonderful
nothing like
resource.
this now, but what we have is a traditional incident command. you know,
That's in place.
Chain of command. So if we got this, we'd have to make sure that plugged in seamlessly to what
Exactly.
would otherwise be taking place.
Right.
So these guys are all getting along, that they're all communicating, delegating, you do this, we'll do that.
Right.
Yes.
The only other thing I wanted to say as an editorial comment is that you and Father Gary kept mentioning earthquakes as being the preeminent threat. I don't see earthquakes as being as big of a threat as I do seeing where you live burning up. And I don't know if I talked to you about this before, did I one time? So I went to one of those,
Talk to Tony.
I went to one of those fire safe things. I just want to go on record right now on TV and say that I'm terrified of the San Juan Canyon catching on fire. Because you guys say that you've got escape routes, and I know the escape route you're talking about goes over down San Juan Oaks, the little dirt trail. I don't know how many people that live in the canyon know about that. I don't know if they know how to get there. I don't know how well equipped it is to funnel people through it. But I've lived here 30 years, and every one of those days I worry about people living in the San Juan Canyon and what happens if that whole thing goes up in flames. As we've seen, especially with climate change and what we see happening in Los Angeles County, Santa Barbara County, if that canyon goes up, I'm really, really worried. So when I hear about CERT and all this other stuff, I'm thinking that needs to be our priority.
Could I respond to that, please? Is it possible that I could respond to your comment?
You make me feel less worried for you
No.
guys. Do you
No,
feel that?
I haven't.
I worry about you guys.
Right, and I'm in charge of communications for the Canyon and the CERT group in the Canyon. In the Canyon, we are in the county, we're the most active CERT group of all. We're still an actual CERT group. The county's had issues of coming and going and so on and so forth, different OES officers. We now have a new OES officer as of 2 weeks ago, by the way. I don't know if you know that, but it's an important fact, and it's Chris Mangano, who was very, very supportive of the CERT organizations. But we do train constantly. We have, originally it was through the Fire Safe Council, but now it's actually our own organization. But we use, the basic group is our Canyon CERT group. I think all of us but 2 of the original CERTs in the Canyon are also ham techs, or ham radio operators. We drill every week on the radios. We are now adding FRS radios, which don't require licenses, to expand our communication system. We do at least 1 evacuation drill every year, which we push very hard for. We advertise, we put flyers out, we knock on doors. We generally get in the neighborhood of about 30 to 40 people doing it.
What does your evacuation plan consist of?
Pardon?
What does your evacuation plan consist of? Does it involve helicopters with evacuation points? No, I talked about this with Michelle before.
No, I know, but Michael could speak to the helicopter part of it, but we have to worry about, since that would have to be established via a state organization or something like that, and we can't, all we can do is just do the best we can with what we have in the canyon.
Right.
And the way that's going to work, we've been pushing for years to do this, and we finally gave up asking for help from, say, the fire services and so on and so forth to do this originally. We just decided we better learn how to do it ourselves. We now have 4 escape routes, including one at the very top of the mountain at the Gavilan Ranch, which is where a lot of large animals could go. But we have many ways out. We practice with them. We take care of those routes ourselves. We're not asking for help because we can't be sure that we're going to get it. But we work really hard at this, and the first problem is communications. It's not the route itself, it's communications. How soon can we communicate? And we've been fighting these battles for years and years and years. I must say that right now, just as of today, as a matter of fact, I got more confirmation from the Office of Emergency Services to do, we've been trying to do a tabletop drill involving CAL FIRE, Hollister Fire, which is, everybody's fire department, the SVRA park, state parks at the top, our CERT group, and so on and so forth, to do an evacuation drill. We're going to do the drill anyway in May, which we always do. We caravan cars out. We actually do it. We open the gates, we communicate, we get people out, we bring them down there. Red Cross meets us at the bottom. Sometimes if they can spare an engine, they put an engine down here at the bottom. But the big problem is going to be official communications. We know how to do the communications in the canyon, we know how to practice them, let's put it that way. But we need to be able to get a hold of RACES, which is the official version of the ham radio operators system. That's the system that has official sanctioning from all the government agencies, and that's those people train all the time. My boss, Tim Takauchi, is the RACES comm leader, and we meet and know these people all the
Is
time.
everyone in the canyon required to have one of these CERT radios so that you can communicate with them?
All the CERT people do. Now, they're not required to. All the CERT people are actually, becoming a ham tech is actually a very involved issue. This is a full day course. It's brutal. Anyway, you require to get an actual ham license. Beyond that, we've started to expand the whole system so that the walkie-talkie radios, these guys here, usually the 2-watt smaller radios, with much more limited range, we're spreading them out, not just among the other CERT people, but among neighbors and so on and so forth, so that and we have a whole series of zones, starting with Michael is zone number 1, Michael Wolf in zone number 1, Los Madrones is zone number 2. There are ham CERT people in each of these groups that are the kind of like the captains, the captain of that particular squad.
I agree.
And they're slowly expanding the FRS contacts. And then we're also putting together phone trees, everything you can think of. And the one reason I really wanted to respond to you is that I absolutely agree with you. I think that we're facing a major disaster. But I'm going to add to that, I think Juan Bautista and Hollister are facing a major disaster. And I was in the fire service for some years. I used to teach hydraulics and I used to teach officers and that sort of thing. And I'm also been a general contractor, so I know a lot about building. I have a project actually that was nearly burned out by the Redwood Valley fire and then a year later by the ranch fire. I was pincer movement. Anyway, what the Paradise Fire showed is that the wildland-urban interface is only the ignition point. The danger to the rest of the city was from the very first or second house that burned. Houses burn at about twice the intensity that the forest around them. And you saw one of the slides that Gary Byrne had, and it was two rows of houses, with two roads and then houses on either side. Did you notice that the trees were still there?
Yes.
Did you notice that the foundations are gone? These fires are so hot they're burning down through the concrete foundations. Now that's about 2,000 degrees. once a house goes with a wind behind it, a 50-mile-an-hour wind, that becomes the most dangerous thing to everybody else. Absolutely the most dangerous thing to everybody else. And that's what happens in these big fires. It's the wind. Doesn't have anything to do with temperature. This could be a cold temperature. It's the wind, and it's the humidity of the wind or the lack of it. And this is what's happening in our fall. So my suggestion, and what we're planning for in this canyon now, is that by next fall, we're going to keep one or two of us as on duty as we possibly can during potential wind situations. And we are actually going to initiate our entire communication system before any fire even appears. If a fire appears in San Juan Bautista, that's an incredible danger to us because that's the direction. The northeast is where these winds are going to come from. This is a terrible thing to say, but you guys are a huge danger to us. But in addition to being a huge danger to yourself. So anyway, I couldn't agree with you more. We have an immense problem. We're doing everything we possibly can, including trying very hard to push the agencies into working with us.
Well, I just want to say two last things in closing. First, my fellow council members are probably getting a little bit tired of me making such a big deal about this, but I saw this on the agenda, and this has been something that I've felt strongly about for years, and I thought I would take the opportunity to say my piece. Secondly, that I want you in the canyon to know that just because you live in the canyon, which is technically San Benito County, I view the canyon as one council member. I view the canyon as being a part of San Juan Bautista. And the last thing I'll say is that if that canyon goes up in flames, the CNN truck is going to be in the parking lot of Windmill Market. And there's going to be people with microphones interviewing any one of us that they can catch, or the city manager. And we better freaking figure that out now, before that happens. Because I don't want to be standing in the Windmill parking lot talking to a reporter saying, like, what did you do ahead of time? Did you know it was going to be a problem? Dan DeVries, you said at a council meeting on February, whatever it is today, that it was going to be a problem. What did you do about that? And now these people are it's just something that I think we're sticking our heads in the sand about, and we need to figure it out. And if the CERT idea helps with that, I'm on favor, and that's all I'll say.
We think in the canyon, I think I speak for most of the CERTs, that we would prefer to consider ourselves a San Juan Bautista CERT organization, not a county CERT organization. We can always be called by the county, we can be asked to help and so on and so forth, but we would far prefer that the canyon and San Juan Bautista think of themselves as a unit. We can be quite helpful to you because we already have the system established. It's amazing. And San Juan Canyon is a pain in everybody's ass. That's all I can say.
There's no
we go to
action on
various
this.
council meetings.
Presentation.
It's the very first classes that Michael taught, and so on and so forth. 50% of us were from the canyon. And we have remained, all of us have remained active CERT members, which is deployable CERT members. Sometimes you'll find that the only people that deploy when asked, are people from the canyon and people that are already, that were CERT trained and are radio operators, from the ARA, from the RACES, and all of those things. But anyway, that's... Go ahead.
We've spent a lot of time on this. Maybe we can
Well, I just wanted to add
one
one thing.
short question. But before he asks this question, I would like to thank you very much, Mike and Tony.
What's his name?
But it's a great program. I know Rick and I have been through it, and we believe in it. So I would say, stay in touch with us, and let's get something started before it's too late.
So please feel free to call me.
So I just wanted to say that last fall, or was it summertime, I can't remember, both my wife and I went in on your caravan down the escape route to San Juan Oaks. And it went very well, and I think there was more than 20 cars, frankly, that one. That was a large one. My only, not fear, but my only thought was, in a real emergency, once you get to San Juan Oaks, where are you going to go after that? Because 156 is going to be jammed. It's going to be jammed to the point where you can't move, you know. So that means we need to plan with the city and with the county.
And that's what I'm saying, we need to set aside some time for that, and that we can get going, because we've spent a lot of time on
Let me
this.
just say, if you'd been through the CERT program, you'd know that you, as an individual and a family, if you develop your disaster plan, then when you get to the bottom of that road, you will know what you are going to be doing.
Right.
Because he may not be there with the troops. But you're right, because you're in the middle of nowhere. Now what? You're alive, but fires tend to be localized. You just go to Hollister.
And the other thing is that it's quite possible that with a nor'easter or an easterly wind, the fire comes up through the SVRA and over the top and pushes us back out here. Now, that's an easy evacuation, but where do we go?
Just come down the hill.
We just come down the hill, but where do we go? Well, we go to San Juan Bautista, and that's
Live in
why
the
it's
market.
critical, I think, that, you know, these CERT programs.
So that's where this training will come in.
Yeah, because we
Cool.
tell you,
So, yeah,
you
we'll-
need to have a plan for you, because even as a
Yeah.
CERT person, I need to
Yeah.
take care of my family before I come
Yep.
in and play.
Yeah,
Of course, my wife's also a CERT member, so she's coming with me.
Nice.
no, that's true. Okay, so thank you so
Thank you very much.
for the presentation. It was very good information.
I'm glad you're protecting the canyon.
Okay,
Thank you.
so now that will go on to monthly financial statements and warrant lists. City Manager?
Mayor, you and I had a chance to look through this list and talk about a few individual items. I can do my best to answer questions if the council has them. The report in itself, there's nothing unusual. We've talked about the Affordable Housing Fund and the money that we spent getting our housing element together. Otherwise, most everything is at or below 50%. If the council has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions?
So was the warrant for 77250 for Granite Rock, was that for the speed bump?
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you have any questions, Cesar?
No.
Dan? Leslie?
Good.
All right. Okay, so let's go on to item D, reports from city council appointees to regional organizations and committees. I've got plenty of meetings coming up, but I haven't been to any.
We haven't had any, LAFCO didn't have one, and COG didn't have one, so, but there's a rearrangement that's happening, and I'm not quite sure where I'm at.
Well, go to LAFCO because you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've had a lot though, or at least, do you want to go first?
Nope, go ahead.
Might
Okay,
take a
short.
while. No, it's not short, it's long.
No campaigning.
And, come on, Dan. Okay, so first we'll start with AMBAG, that we met last week, and AMBAG is now doing their 2040 MTO plan, Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And AMBAG, if you don't know, it also does our regional forecast for both jobs and population. So the good news is, for a lot of people, is population growth, they figure, will actually slow down due to two major demographic developments. A declining birth rate that started in the 2008 recession and has not rebounded to normal levels, and a drastic drop in immigration. So between the two, that will ease population pressures over the long term. They also predict jobs off of that number, but I would caution people, because in this county, 60% of our workforce leaves the county, mostly for Santa Clara County, but for other counties also. And they're doing their computerized modeling off of jobs and people in each county. So I think that doesn't match. I would be careful with using some of those job numbers.
I'll say.
You know? But the week before that, I went to what's called the Super COG, which was down in Paso Robles. Mary Gilbert of COG and I went down together, and We met the people from Santa Barbara County, we met the people from SLO County, we met the mayor of Salinas, we met people from Santa Cruz, and we all agreed that we're going to just divide up the money rationally, and there's $250 million that's been set aside by HCD for this supercog area. Automatically, San Juan Bautista gets $65,000 of that for planning grants. There's also another, that only takes up about half that money for all those jurisdictions. They're leveled, I mean, for example, City of Salinas gets, I think, $180,000, so it varies by population.
There's two kinds.
What?
There's two kinds.
Yeah, two kinds. And then I'm getting to the second kind, and so Mary and I talked about that on the drive home, which takes almost 2 hours. She said she's going to try and not divide it up by population, because we would get the short end of the stick, and we still have to do just as much planning as Hollister. So she'll try and even it out by jurisdiction. So we need to hold her to that. Okay, so that's it for AMBAG and SuperCog. Next thing is Monterey Bay Power met on February 3rd, I think it was. And we had two main things to talk about. We welcomed the new jurisdictions of SLO and Santa Barbara County into us, and we're now 32 jurisdictions big. The power load is doubled. We're probably going to change our name to reflect that we're no longer Monterey Bay. Santa Barbara gets mad when you call them Monterey Bay. So we will probably be called Central Coast Community Energy, but that's not official yet, so hang on. But for example, just to demonstrate our geographic coverage, we now stretch from just south of Half Moon Bay all the way to the Ventura County line. So we're now the largest CCA in the state of California by square miles, although we're far from the largest CCA. You know, San Jose takes that cake pretty easily, but they're not as big geographically. Anyway, the other big issue is we have decided to separate our rate structure out from PG&E. Before, we always charged the exact same rates as PG&E, then gave you a 3 or 5% rebate at the end of the year, so we can say truthfully that we are cheaper than PG&E. I'm predicting that this is going to be a controversial issue. You have, to us, we go, well, you know, but the people in Santa Cruz and San Luis Obispo, they're really serious about this, much more serious than we are. And so, you know, there's all kinds of possibilities. Do you cut the power rate to the bone and say you're helping everybody, especially poor people? Or do you keep it the way it is and you have some programs, or you keep it a little higher, but still cheaper than PG&E? And do you have a lot of programs? And the programs, you know, the programs that we run, and then PG&E used to run these, but they no longer do because they're in bankruptcy. So they're like rebates for EVs, grants for charging stations for EVs, rebates on new heat pumps to replace gas furnaces and hot water heaters, rebates on new electrical induction stoves to replace gas stoves, rebates or grants for battery storage on both homes and commercial buildings. And this can also be used for emergency power shutdowns, which can hamper our economy quite a bit. And there's also, we're doing quite a bit of investment in offshore wind. Down in Morro Bay, there is a company that is, they have their permits and they're in the design stage and they're in the environmental impact stage of putting in more than a fair number of offshore wind turbines and things like that. So we're an investor in that company or program. So that sucks a lot of money, by the way. Anyway, we decided that unlike the city of San Jose, we do not want to be an investor in grid or anything like that at this time at all. for very obvious reasons. People, including, especially the people in the governor's office, and maybe even the governor say, oh, we'll just take it over. And I say, really? You want to buy a car with 300,000 miles on it and a lousy transmission, which is what the PG&E grid is? I'll pass on that, thank you, you know. Make them fix it and then buy it. That would be my suggestion. But, so that's it for the reports.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Leslie?
San Benito County Water, stop using water softeners and irrigation. That's about it. I'm the chair of the committee now.
Oh, good. Congratulations.
My turn. Thank you.
Good. Okay.
I have a question. There's an organization that goes around testing water, well water. Are you familiar
Yeah,
with
I am.
Is that the Cal rule?
it? Do you know who it is?
I don't think it's them. I can't remember
on their
who
list,
it
yes.
is. But it's all
to her
about
after.
nitrates and things like that.
What
We
is
can
what?
chat offline.
Talk after.
Thank you very much.
It's an organization
That was
out of
good.
Visalia and Watsonville. Okay, I've communicated with them.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll chat offline.
Yeah.
That's not domestic. I don't think.
So now we
Get this
go
meeting
on to the strategic plan update from ad hoc committee. Don, city manager, do you want to do that?
You skipped the city manager's report.
I did? Oh, I am so
But
sorry.
that's fine. That's fine. It's in the report. The written copy is there. Just know that back to water real fast. We have made great progress with our master plans that we started in September. We had a big meeting on Friday with 12, 13 different people in preparation for meeting with the EPA next Tuesday. So the EPA was concerned in June, you may recall, with the effectiveness of our wastewater treatment plant, which has come a long way in the last year or so. So the water is healthy, but we are implementing flushing exercises. So as we flush, occasionally people's water will be tainted. And we're going to start forewarning people before we flush so that they understand it's a temporary issue and it's actually a preventative maintenance issue to make their water better. So that was a mistake we made a week or so ago, and we're starting over again with better communication. So we live and learn. At least I'm living and learning. So just wanted to assure people about the water and the water being in as good a shape as it's been in a long time and moving forward and getting better. Also, I get a lot of questions about the roundabout and the Rancho Vista development, and I shared a quick summary Saturday of the status of that. They are convinced that it will work. They're working on a design, and we're working with the adjacent property owners to figure out the utilities. So we're moving forward with construction drawings, and they were hoping to break ground this fall in October. So that's good news, and it is moving forward. So I just wanted to share that because I get a lot of questions back at the ranch, which is like 30 feet that way. Okay. Yeah, it's, that's okay. I can manage it, I think. So there's other stuff in there, the coronavirus, working with the county emergency operations center with that, and CAO Ray Espinoza. I am taking some training tomorrow morning for executives with the county Office of Emergency Services in Monterey, and I have another full day session training in that regard planned. We have been working with the school district and PG&E on emergency preparation plans as well. So we are moving on these things. So to get to item E, the strategic plan updates, and I'll let the Cesar, Councilmember Flores, and Mayor Edge pitch in. We established an ad hoc committee to review the bylaws and to review the strategic planning committee and where it should go from now. It did not meet in February, so we thought we'd bring a status report to you on the outcome of our discussion of the bylaws. And according to my notes from that meeting, quite extensive notes, we were talking about terms for officers being more like 2 years, because right now the officers don't have terms, and then the membership being 4 years, and with only 5 members, so limiting the size of it. and the term that people serve. So that way we can get fresh thinking in that committee, and it renews itself more often. Right now, some people, like Councilmember Freeman, have been on board since the first day it met, and probably ready to cycle out for a little while, take a break. Brown Act and leadership, how we can help work with a newly seated strategic planning committee and get them trained so that they understand the whole purpose of the open meeting law, so that everyone participates equally. And most importantly, I think, is to create a mission statement for the strategic planning committee. And as we heard Saturday, I thought we had some interesting ideas. Councilmember Flores brought up the idea of bringing that in closer so that the council has more direct contact with what they're doing to make the activities more unified. So it's not a place for ideas to die, it's a place for ideas to grow. So I look forward to further conversations and progress in that regard. We're going to meet with more stakeholders, right? That was the idea between now and the March meeting. So anyway,
We're looking for committed people, people that want to come and do the job. That's what we're looking for.
They're better than uncommitted people who do a bad job.
There's a lot of them there.
So
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so now item 5, public hearing items. Introduce an ordinance adding section 28 to Title 5, banning the use of certain plastics and establishing a sustainable food service ware and retail bags ordinance. So,
Well done, Dan.
Mayor, I'll happy to introduce that. It's a variation of our city attorney's draft that we presented to you at our last council meeting. So there were a number of edits and recommendations from the community. We had CSUMB's environmental studies group helping us with that. That was really a big help. They interviewed 20 of 48 businesses. We got some feedback, not all of it positive. Not every business is jumping on board, as we noticed today at lunch, Mayor.
brought my little stainless steel straws out.
Pretty
Where
cool.
was that? Where'd you go?
Went to
Oh, no.
Mission Cafe, but they brought us plastic straws.
We did not use them. We said thank you very much. So we're getting in the groove. So what we've done is we've refined the ordinance, and the city attorney has reviewed it and is comfortable with its presentation. So we're ready for the council to consider an initial first reading tonight. We do recommend a phase-in period because, as we noticed, how many straws are there back behind the counter at the cafe? And so restaurant owners and others who have bought a 3 or 4 month supply of single-use plastics have the opportunity to find a way of disposing of them and identify a new source for that kind of thing. So it was recommended both from Ecology and Selena Stoddard, who helped us a lot with the FAQs and the public outreach forms you'll notice in here. I asked for her to translate them in Spanish. Otherwise they're awesome. But to have them in both languages, and then we can move forward and continue to do more outreach. So actually, we've signed up for 2 semesters with CSUMB, and they'll come back and help us work more with these business owners. So it would go into effect approximately May 1st, at the end of May, which is after our biggest event, the Rib Cook-Off. But I'll let you know, in talking with the coordinator of the Rib Cook-Off, he's got almost all of his vendors in line already working towards compliance.
Good.
So he was a little nervous about it, but he's making great progress, so eventually we'll come along. We think the special events will be the biggest challenge, and need to work with the windmill.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Steve Andrew. The biggest challenge in terms of compliance
Right, and enforcement.
and enforcement,
Right, so,
and therefore enforcement.
right.
Well, and that's fairly easy to handle, I would imagine, up front with the meetings with Todd.
Yes, up front, exactly. And whether we hold each vendor or the event coordinator. So instead of holding Rotary, responsible.
Right?
We only do the beer.
We would go to
In
each
plastic
vendor.
cups.
Yeah.
Maybe if any of us find someone not in compliance, they give us free ribs. I just think that's fair.
You're
As long as
elected
it's under $50, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was a judge last year, so I know how that.
So, and that being said,
I'm supposed to be
I think our ordinance, if there are any questions, we're happy to answer them and we can move forward.
Is there any action taken on
So-
this?
Yes, it'll be the first reading.
Yeah, but
Wait, this is first reading?
do I want to open it to public hearing?
Yes, yes, please, thank you.
public comment. Does anybody have public comment on this item? Okay, so then we'll close public hearing and discussion by the council. Any discussion?
No, I like the 1 year. We have to work out that, what if I don't comply, TBD.
Yeah. So we're-
And, yeah, just I have 3 months supply behind my counter of straws. Who's keeping track of that?
Well, it's just a deadline. It's, we need to get people in compliance by May 1st.
Right,
So
absolutely,
they're
understood.
more than welcome to come into compliance sooner. Some restaurants probably already are.
And then after that, do they have a year to get their,
No, they have between now and May 1st
okay,
to get in compliance with our ordinance.
all right,
Right.
okay.
And one thing I failed to mention is a development of a bail schedule. At the last council meeting, I provided examples of fines that other cities, Pacific Grove, Monterey, and Carmel, are using. So I'll bring back a recommendation in the form of a resolution in time for the second meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to add, a lot of other cities are doing this also, or similar. And
Yeah.
so I'm thinking that the traveling rib cook-off people, at least if they're going to be in California, are going to be in,
Yeah.
they're going to be hip to it, or
Right.
it's going to hit them. And so
Yeah.
they might as well get used to it. If it's not in San Juan, it's going to be in San Jose, or Santa Cruz, or
Right.
Paso Robles. Or,
Yeah,
Yeah.
From Santa Barbara.
every food truck is gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
this is gonna
Yeah, without a
affect,
doubt.
so start now.
Even in Portland, right?
Okay,
Go ahead.
through the chair. Last time when
Mayor.
the kids were here with their professor, and I was just so appreciative of all the hard work they put into this. He said they got some pushback, and I didn't get a chance to catch up with them afterwards, but it's a public forum. Can we say, because these merchants are our merchants, we probably know all of them. Could you say who
48.
in the community is really has some heartburn over this?
He wouldn't identify. He wouldn't identify.
Well, that's nice of him.
Was it
I don't think-
a
A restaurant,
survey thing to
a
fill
restaurant,
out?
yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about the big ones. Windmill Market, are they okay with it?
I'm not sure yet. I don't think they've been surveyed.
Hardiness,
Yes, they're okay with it,
Don Yester's,
as far as I know.
JJ's?
JJ's, Mission Cafe.
Not
Well,
as
you went to
much.
the Mission Cafe today.
Not
and
not
found
as
out
not as
that-
much, not as
Yeah.
much. I think open-minded, they were all curious about how to comply, so that's why the FAQs are so important, because they're going to show them how to, so once they see a path forward, I think we're trying to help them relax and take that path.
But I just rattled off 4 or 5 of our top income producers for the city of San Juan Bautista in terms of sales tax. And if they're all basically okay, sounds like we're
Yeah.
good.
We're good.
Yeah, not all those restaurants are okay, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Give us a chance to crack that nut.
Yeah,
Come May 1st.
come May 1st, they're gonna have to.
So what my only suggestion would be is, for example, we might have a new location, not a new vendor, a new establishment opening up in the old O'Neill's place, and they're gonna be serving food. So we should probably have a process where Todd gives them all this stuff and it says, make sure, because it's easier to start with from a dead start than, buy a bunch of plastic straws and have to throw them away, or, something like that.
Right, and promote it through our business license and through other avenues. And we're working to establish a special website, so a business interested in locating here can see that these restrictions are
Yeah.
in place.
That's a
I
great
wonder
point.
if
Sorry.
I wonder if the new taqueria was contacted when they were doing their survey, because that was right around the time they were opening up.
Was that
They
Valero?
They probably
Valero, yeah,
They probably didn't know they had food there, because
Yeah.
most people don't.
right.
Yeah, I don't think
Just,
so.
I don't know.
I
Just
haven't seen the
curious.
actual
So
results.
I got takeout there this weekend and it was in a plastic bag.
Oh, yeah.
So we have some work to do.
So,
Yeah.
But I think Councilmember Freeman's point is a good one, because if what these merchants are gonna do is just throw that plastic into the landfill anyway in order to get paper to be compliant, what have we accomplished?
I know.
You know, it's gonna go into the landfill. So the alerting or educating people at the front seems to be important.
Yeah. So,
So we need a
Business permit
system
process,
tax.
obviously.
The business license, right.
so do we have a motion to introduce an ordinance adding section 28 to the Title V, banning the use of certain plastics and establishing a sustainable food serviceware and retail bags ordinance.
So moved. I make that motion, Madam Mayor. But I'd like to table the motion for a second and ask the city attorney, because she's been conspicuously silent over there. Deb, you wrote this ordinance. Is there anything you want to kind of, or feel compelled to tell us about it? Since you wrote it?
Well, I would just say that in addition to the merchants and the restaurants, there's also a section that makes it applicable to City Hall. So City Hall has to follow these rules as well.
Look at all us in our
And
Our
so
little
far,
bottle.
we're looking pretty good.
metal bottles.
No more
More plastic bottles.
Well done, well
I'm not
done.
gonna show up here at the Crystal Geyser anymore.
So we have Dan made a motion to adopt this, and do I have a second?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, all those in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So now we move on to discussion items. Farmers Market update, Associate Planner Todd Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the council, staff, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Todd Kennedy, your city planner, here to discuss this case. The item before you is a discussion item to review and follow up on the farmers market currently taking place on Sundays here in town. No action is proposed for this item. The city has been interested in farmers markets for a long time. They have been discussed by our committees, such as the Strategic Planning Committee, and they are indicated in the general plan as well. On July 6, 2019, a special event application was submitted to City Hall for a farmers market to take place on Sundays from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. The first event was scheduled to take place on Sunday, September 8, 2019, and run through Sunday, April 26, 2020. After that date is when a renewal application is anticipated to be submitted to City Hall. The event is taking place on Mariposa Street between 2nd Street and 3rd Street. Resolution 2019-41 was approved by City Council at their meeting on September 17, 2019. This resolution authorized the street closure on Mariposa from 2nd Street and 3rd Street. City staff met with the applicants in January, and we discussed several matters related to complaints, event operation, products being sold, as well as fees and revenues being generated. It is indicated that foot traffic has slowed down in recent months, and the season may be a factor. The applicants have indicated they are willing to work with the city and improve the event. The event coordinator and vendors are required to have a business license, and actually, as of tonight, he just filled it out, and it's all complete, ready to be turned in. They have been sent the application. Revenue can be collected by the city if they have a seller's permit to report sales tax. Anything being sold on site that is taxable is required to have a seller's permit. Farm fresh produce that is not consumed on site is not taxable. Lately, there's been only a couple of produce vendors on site, once again due to the season as we suspect. This event complements the city's agricultural heritage and provides a good opportunity for the community residents and visitors alike to be out and about and shop for local produce. Due to the slow traffic, this event should be placed on hold until the harvest season returns. Staff recommends City Council examine the event and provide direction to the applicants and staff. That concludes my presentation. Myself, city staff, or we have the applicant here tonight who can answer any questions that you might have.
I haven't seen any produce, though, the last few weeks. And I know they were closed one week. And then one week they had to, when it was so windy, they had to break down really early. All the wind.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
But I haven't seen any produce. Has there been produce every weekend,
Well, yeah.
every Sunday?
Here, Jerry, come on up. Let me introduce Jerry Lamy, who's our applicant tonight.
Mayor, City Council, and residents that are attending. Yes, we are a certified farmers market. In order to operate, we need to have some representation of a farmer at the market. Farmers have been pretty hard for us to come by due to the lack of sales and slowness of what's been going on. But we've had honey and strawberries every single week since we've been open. When we started, we had as many as 6 farmers to begin with. We had produce and fruit. Right now, I should have 1 or 2 more produce vegetable farmers coming back next Sunday, and we are out attempting to get eggs and fruit in the near future. We have tried to contact Pinnacle, which is close by, as well as Ibera Farms, which is also very, very close. A lot of it just has to do with the lack of dollars and cents. The more sales that are available, these guys will, they talk among themselves, and sales is what brings the people out. Because San Juan Bautista was so kind and easy to work with, we were with Mr. Flores helping us get started. We jumped in and we were able to open a lot earlier than I thought I would. A lot of times, most farmers markets would begin maybe in the months of May, when you have a lot of stone fruit available, cherries, corn, and things like that. Well, we had the opportunity to get started, and we were kind of working through the winter, and we've had as many as 18 vendors on a couple of weeks. We've dipped down to a low of about 8 for a couple of weeks out there. Part of that is I kind of blame myself, where my one of my local markets in Carmel Valley got moved from the park to a Safeway shopping center at Mid Valley, and a lot of the merchants thought that was a fantastic opportunity, and they bolted to Carmel Valley. So I'm trying to drag them back and re-recruit, and as of this last week, I was able to get our second baked potato and roasted corn person coming back. I had another chef come and talk to us. I've got a local barbecue person looking to enter the market, as well as the 2 vegetable farmers that I believe will be there this Sunday. A lot of the farmers will tell me fantastic stories on how they just don't have the manpower, and they're running to Mexico for a month, and as soon as they get back, they were gonna bolt back to the market. I've never seen them again. And so that's kind of what's been going on. But what's kind of hard for me is in my Cupertino market, I've got 40 plus vegetable farmers, vegetable and fruit farmers. And they stack it as high as you could, as high as I'm tall.
Coming from where to Cupertino?
They're coming from Fresno, Modesto.
Right.
They're coming from Watsonville.
Right, but they won't come here?
I'm having trouble getting them here because the sales haven't been there.
But it's chicken or egg. If you get them here, then you're going to have a well-visited farmer's market. But why would anyone come to San Juan Bautista on a Sunday to buy churros or a baked potato or jewelry or something? I mean, it's got to be... I've been so frustrated because I've always thought that a farmer's market could do really, really, really well here. But it's got to be a legitimate, bona fide farmer's market, like it sounds like you're doing in Cupertino.
And we are. And so when I started, like I said, I had 6 farmers here. The sales were not there. The people did not buy what was here. And because of that, after 3 to 4 weeks, they left San Juan Bautista. I'm doing what I can to get them back. I know I will be able to recruit them and get them back out here. So far, what's happening, the hours that we're running, 9:30 to 2:30,
put those hours out there to coordinate with the masses from the mission. And the 8:30 and the 10 o'clock masses are primarily residents. The residents do not walk the market. They drive, they park on both sides over here, come just for church and go home. The only people that are actually walking the market now are the 12 o'clock and the 1:30 masses, which are coming from farther away. They're coming to the mission as tourists and things like that. But I've been out there every single week, and I know that, I'm the executive director of West Coast Farmers Markets. I run 15 markets. I basically have the ears of several hundred farmers, and I am going to drag them out here yelling and screaming if I have to. But they will be coming, and we'll have them here, and we're going to build you a market.
Would it help you if you were to maybe shut down for the winter? Say, open up, I don't know, April through October or something like that?
Now that we've been here December, January, and into February, if we shut it down now, nobody will come back. Yeah, I think
that to happen.
I don't want. I mean, if you do that, we'll fail, and we'll never make it. At this point in time, it's my goal is to run straight through till next year, and then at that point in time, say the end of November, December, I think we'll make a decision whether we want to close, say January, February, March of next year, to make it a little bit more of a seasonal market from my experience this year, because the sales for the farmers haven't been there. But I know that what I'm attempting to do is continue the momentum. And Dan, let me tell you that we're right here in the middle of the salad bowl in this area with Salinas.
Not just the salad bowl, you got 70% of the country's fresh flowers being grown 15 miles that way in Watsonville.
Right.
And in some of your markets that you're in charge of, the 15, isn't fresh flowers like a big deal at those markets?
To be really honest with you, fresh flowers are sold more on a wholesale market than they are by individual farms coming out and selling at their own markets. They do not come to farmers markets by and large.
I'm just thinking about the farmers markets that I love. Deb, do you go to the Monterey Farmers Market on Alvarado? Yes. What do you see there when you? What's your best market of the 15 that you manage?
Cupertino, Sunday 9 to 1, 150, 160 tents, 5,000 to 7,000 people coming through every week.
How many?
Between 5,000 to 7,000 people.
Yeah, but that's
Yes, sir.
Cupertino though. But what happened to the plant guy that I loved buying his plants and they haven't been back?
Once again, that's Happy Face Nursery. They're in a great majority of mine, and he is having trouble breaking even, just paying his own family to come because sales haven't been there. He comes to the Salinas Saturday market every single Saturday. He's going to the Carmel Valley market. And they bring a van full of flowers and have to put away very, very few. One of the things I wanted to tell you, Dan, is that one of the reasons I never came down this way before is because the people that own the Cupertino shopping center that I was in, they owned a couple of shopping centers here in Salinas. When I came down and looked them over, and I went in and saw head lettuce for 39 cents and things like that, I'm going, wow, how could I compete? Right. But what I've done I've had a contract for 2 years now with with the Old Town Salinas Marketplace to run their market for them. I've grown it from 8 vendors to 35 vendors. The key that I started with was hot foods. Hot foods drove the people in. I started with 4, I got up to 12. From there, from the people coming to hot foods, my farmers started coming. I've gone from 3 farmers to 10 farmers. And it's because of the foot traffic that started with the hot food that grew the produce, and getting the farmers to come back. And so overall, I'm graded on, I've got room for about 35 vendors on the street. And we're looking to take on another over by Subway there next to the Galboin Street. The city's going to give me another room for another 10 or so vendors. At some point, they're asking me to expand to Main Street and double the size of the market because I've been successful in growing it little by little.
Well, that's interesting, leading with hot foods.
Mhm.
But for my wife and I, as soon as we saw hot foods, we're like, okay, well, this isn't a real farmer's market. They're selling Bob Marley t-shirts and jewelry and stuff like that. This isn't a farmer's market. And like you pointed out, we are in such a great location geographically. We got Coke Farms, like you could hit a 9-iron almost and hit the building. And Coke Farms sells at farmers markets all over the place.
Let me also tell you that I'm not.
Phil Foster, Pinnacles, you mentioned him.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the area as much as I'd like to be. I've been driving past here to get to Salinas, but I've been waiting in May for the Hollister market to open again, to where I could reach out to a lot of the successful vendors there that are there for midweek and bring them here on the weekends. And I've got a half a dozen vendors that are there that are going to help me do that.
Do you run the Hollister market also?
Not the one in Hollister, no,
No,
sorry, I
okay.
do not.
But
But,
if we got you information, say for instance, Phil's Market, his
Phil Foster?
Foster, his.
Packed every Saturday morning.
Every Saturday, he has
Packed.
his.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of
I mean,
nowhere.
and there's a lot of people that go. So, we need to get you his name and phone number.
That'd be awesome.
I will personally, right here on TV, guarantee and commit to helping you any way I can.
I'll give you a bunch of my cards.
Phil Foster needs to be there, Dale Cope needs to be there, Earthbound Farm needs to be there, David Gill and True Leaf and Tailor Farms.
I have,
Yeah.
I already have one.
You do?
He's got a box of them.
I guess the message you're hearing from us, what's your name again?
Jerry.
Jerry?
Yes.
I guess the message you're hearing from us, Jerry, is that we really, really, really want this town to have a very successful, thriving farmers market, because we have seen what those do to communities. They'll blow it up.
Yeah.
And they're awesome. And it's everything that our community wants to be: organic, healthy, farm to table, all of that stuff. So if there's anything that we can do as a city, a council, anything I can do individually, I commit to you, I will do it.
And
I'll
Dan,
call these guys. I know these guys.
I'm out there every Sunday, and my commitment to you is I'm going to make it happen. I've just been,
That's awesome.
I've been getting some resistance because they don't think the sales are there. One of the things that I'm wondering about is I scheduled it 9:30 to 2:30 to work around the hours of the masses. I'm finding that the early morning masses are not working for foot traffic, but I'm seeing foot traffic coming as we're leaving a lot of times. So I'm wondering, would 11 to 4 be more open to what you to the foot traffic for there? My fear is if I don't get out here by 7 o'clock in the morning and barricade the street off, then people will park along the street, and once that happens, and they run into the church, or they go up and down the street.
That was going to be my question. There's cars on that street every Sunday.
Yeah, so I come at 7 in the morning, and so what's happening is the people from the 18th barrel over here, they are wonderful, wonderful people. Sean and his wife, Fitzgerald,
25th.
they are putting signs out for me on Saturdays. I come at 7 in the morning, and I
25.
barricade the street, because the signs are out there Saturday morning. People are seeing them when they park, and it says 8 o'clock until 3. So people are coming at 7 in the morning that have parked there all night, and they're moving their cars. When the signs are out there, I've never ever had a problem. But I live in Redwood City. I'm getting up at 4 in the morning. I'm out here by 7. I'm blocking the street off, and I haven't had a problem doing it that way. If I move it to 11 to 4, I still need somebody to block the street off at 7. Otherwise, people are going to have a problem.
Yeah. So who's parking on the street then, if you're there blocking it off? Because I see, is it vendors' vehicles?
No. It's people that are coming late at night and partying, in the bars and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're finding another way home, maybe take an Uber or something like that. They're coming back to get their cars in the morning. A couple of times I've had people sleeping in the street in their cars. I've tapped on the window. They didn't take too kindly to that, but they moved on. And I mean, I got to tell you, the people in this area are very nice. I've had no problems.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Let's make you a success,
Okay,
man.
we need to make this
Yes.
farmer's market a big
know, so I-
success.
I'm devoted, Dan, to make it work. It's gonna,
I'll help you do
it's
that.
gonna
I'll
happen.
email you tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the reason I don't want to stop any momentum that I have. I want to continue to grow it. I'm pushing and pushing. We should have a couple of vegetable farmers out there this week. I've still got the strawberries. I still got the honey lady. If I can continue to build the foot traffic, I'll get eggs. We'll get, we're gonna get eggs and the fruit and everything is gonna come.
I have an egg lady, maybe I'll talk to her.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. And you know what? I'll work with these people to charge them like next to nothing in order for them to build and for them to become
Get it
successful.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of keep building and making it happen.
Okay, okay, good.
Thanks, Jerry.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Jerry.
Jerry.
Thanks for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
I'll email you tomorrow, okay?
Thank you.
No, was there public comment on this, Mayor?
Oh, public comment. Do we have public comment on this?
No,
Farmers market, sorry about that.
no.
Thank you very much. Great
Okay.
presentations, by the way. And the quality of the
moving on.
presentations tonight were very good.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on to,
Thank you, Jerry.
At the Pinnacle Market.
yeah,
We were talking about that.
We're there every Saturday, yeah.
Yep.
Are you guys there every Saturday? And what I'm thinking, Jerry, just real fast, sorry, Miss Smith, down there. What I'm thinking is everything that Phil doesn't sell on Saturday, bring it over here on Sunday.
yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, going on, downtown parking, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. We did what I refer to as a Parking 101 conversation with the Planning Commission earlier this month because we want to introduce the concept of an intentional structured parking system. And what that means, we'll take the definition of what San Juan Bautista needs and wants. And I say that because just a brief conversation with the Planning Commission stirred up a bunch of concerns, and I talked to a lot of people one-on-one. I met with the Historical Society and tried to calm down some tensions around paid parking and parking meters. And that's not what this is about. This is about the reality that if you don't have an intentional formal parking system in a parking district, it'll take its own shape. It'll form its own policies and ideas.
That's a CERT call, they need you.
I was going to say, watch out, the canyon's on fire. So, an example of that, is I shared with the mayor today. I recall parking as a teenager to go to a Rams game in downtown Los Angeles and paying someone $5 to park on their front lawn to come back to my car after the game to find out the doors are wide open and someone had stolen my stereo. That is in effect a paid parking system without any intention or structure, without any security, without any liability insurance, without any structure. So the previous city manager, Ed Tuis, had requested Harrison Associates to come up with a parking plan, and all three of these boards are basically the same. But what they're promoting is the idea of using vacant lots in and around the downtown as leased or acquired parking sites. So it's an example of some of the lots, the old Chinese restaurant, and other lots, not on 3rd Street, but behind it, to support between 80 and 95 parking spots. And the cost of developing this program, according to the study, is about $1.4 million.
What?
And so, as I noted,
What?
well, for asphalt and lighting and other things.
But not land acquisition or leasing?
And another example that I shared with the Planning Commission, and I've been involved in parking in one way or another for 25, 30 years. In 2009, the merchants kicked me out of Old Town Salinas because I recommended paid parking. So they didn't kick me out. Fortunately, I was able to stick around for a little longer. But, I was there when we opened, in fact, I opened and hired the contractor to open the new Monterey Street garage. And that was 50 cents an hour and supported the new Maya Theater at the time in 2006 or so. And at that time, the lot across the street was vacant, and so we bought some kiosks and we put them in the lot and you pay by space. People were willing to pay twice as much to park in the lot across from the Maya Cinemas compared to parking in the garage.
Yep.
And that's because the garage was perceived as not being safe. So the investment goes into lighting, maintenance, trash pickup, and taking care of them. And it occurred to me after talking to the Historical Society, if you've been to Solvang lately, they do a pretty cool job with their surface parking lots to make them look, like Holland. There's a little windmill on the corner. I don't know. There's things that we can do. So, so I just wanted to present this and get these results out, because lately we've been talking a lot about parking downtown. Who's going to pay for it? If we can provide enough enforcement to make sure that it's adhered to. And if there are opportunities, maybe there's some low-hanging fruit, maybe there's a small lot that we could develop into like a pilot project and do a little bit of design work on and do the math and see if that works. Make sure that 50 cents an hour will help us recover our costs over the term of the lease. So I'm going to venture down the path of doing a little bit of parking light, so to speak, and just do some exploration and some studies. I'm not going to...
And make it permeable.
And make it permeable parking.
Thank you.
So the stormwater folks are all happy, and we keep our water; it doesn't run off to the Monterey Bay. So with that, there's a lot more to talk about on this, but I think the most important message that I would like to put out as far as introducing parking to the city and the city council is working with the stakeholders. It's the most important thing you can do, because you don't want to surprise anyone with a parking plan or a parking study. It's one of the most emotional issues in any downtown. There's no right way to provide a parking plan, and you're always going to get pushback. So whatever step we take, we need to take it together. We all need to be unified with the merchants, with the property owners, and get some willing players to take that lead. But I know we've talked a lot about parking, and maybe the council can help give me some guidance and the community as we go around the table real quick, and I can take that back with me and study it further. So
Well,
that's
Do we have any?
I know that I've received a lot of comments, and if you want to call it pushback, on the lot behind the bank being locked. And frankly, that used to be after hours Daisy's parking,
Yeah.
Amongst other things.
Yeah, amongst other things.
Everybody parked there.
Yeah.
Even the
And
homeless?
it's been roped off, and it caused a lot of people in town to be rather upset at, the owner.
From what I understand, though, the new tenant who is renting that is liable.
Is liable for-
She's liable for anything that might happen on that, in that parking lot.
But that's no excuse not to use it. We could handle that through indemnity through the city and her.
If the city could lease it, and then the city could then...
And we could
Right.
designate 6 spots for her little French thing or whatever
Yeah.
that business is. And then there's 20 other spots that could be used by the city. There's so many opportunities within the city right now. Right
that-
across the street from that is the lot behind
The
Right.
Glenn
clock shop.
Paul's, clock shop.
Right.
That's been chained off ever since Becky
Forever.
McGovern got into a fight with Lopez about the Posada Hotel.
Right.
So, I mean, there's just, and then what about behind Daisy's? I mean,
Yeah, there's a big
Daisy's
area
and
there.
Margot's.
Margot's,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the whole dirt lot.
Those are identified here.
They're identified on those boards.
Those
Yeah,
are-
it's
those are
amazing
identified
how
on
much
this- on this
room
plan.
there
There's-
is just in that one
there's-
block.
So part of it,
Absolutely.
I think, is just kind of, San Juan hasn't caught up to the fact that the parking is really valuable and our space is valuable. And
Right.
so they just, the area behind Daisy's and the rock shop and all that stuff is just kind of wasted space. I mean,
Yeah.
But here's what I want to say, you guys, is that in my opinion, because we talked about this, or hit on it at least at the retreat on Saturday, is that having pretty good parking for our visitors to come to our shops and our restaurants is not just important, it's essential. Because if San Juan starts, if our visitors start to think, I don't want to go there, it's always freaking crammed, I can't find a place to park, that's going to cut down on our sales and cut down on our revenue and our sales tax and everything else. Who would like, for example, to go to Cannery Row on a Saturday at 3 p.m.? Not me. No. I'm not going to go anywhere near Cannery Row on a weekend because parking is so bad. Now, if we conversely can provide some kind of adequate parking, I think it's only going to help our merchants, help our sales tax, help our TOT, all of those things. So I see it as an economic development priority,
Oh, yeah.
not just a quality of life for people who
Right.
happen to be driving through. I think we owe it to our merchants.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the problems that I see is that a lot of the parking is being taken up by employees, restaurant employees. For instance, right in front of the Basque restaurant, that whole street's always the employees from Jardines. So they don't, I mean, they park there all day,
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
you know? So,
On both sides of it, yeah.
yeah, on both sides of the
absolutely.
street. So that's a problem we have to
It's a
deal
very
with.
important economic development issue.
Yeah,
Even on Third Street, merchants are parking in front of their,
Oh, yeah, they,
yeah,
I
Their
don't want to
stores.
say they always have, but a lot of them do.
yes.
So
Right,
it can
absolutely.
It can be structured in terms of long-term parking and short-term parking, and the long-term parking being a permit system for employees that are going to be parking for 8 hours. They're on the lots, and they're not on Third Street, so that you incentivize places for employees to park and give them some, that's what I mean about giving them some structure instead of
Right.
just filling in the void.
yeah, no, lots to think about there.
May I ask one last question? Those are all right. Deb, a while ago, the Archdiocese of Monterey wanted to use our community center temporarily while they did acoustic, or not, no, that was the community center needed acoustics, while they did seismic work on the mission. And I tried to encourage you to deal with Susan to see if we could use what we call the bonfire lot for parking. Did you make any headway with that, or did you explore it, or did you at least?
I did raise it with them, and they said no.
Yeah.
It was
And
just
they
a
won't-
firm no.
Yeah.
It was a hard no?
Yes.
And if they ever find out that we have that bonfire, we don't want them to know we're having that bonfire.
How could they not know?
Well,
It's
not
been
the
there for
diocese.
years.
Yeah,
Been
it
there
has
for
been.
70
So
years.
anyway,
Right.
so you raised that with her, and it was hard now? The city can never use that?
Right, they did not want to deal with the city, no.
That would be a huge loss.
And
Yeah.
it's
Thanks for looking into that.
liability is what it is.
Right, and this study did not take that into consideration, nor did it go as far and to include the school district and the lot there. Yeah.
Because the school district lot at the soccer fields is de facto the big parking lot for
It is.
for
It is.
people visiting for the week, for the
Events.
a weekend day, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And, go to Hardeen's or JJ's or Donia's,
It's an
and,
easy walk, yeah.
yeah.
I can't believe she just said no.
I can't.
Well, I can't believe that.
Not just
I
no,
can't.
hard no.
I know her.
Yeah. We all know her.
So there's a lot of information out there. I just came across a 2014 report that the Cal Poly students did. Apparently there's 1,400 parking spaces downtown.
1,400.
Yeah, 1,400. So we'll continue to study that.
And what rate?
Come back with some
In our
probable
town.
solutions for you.
1,400.
Okay,
Can we move the
so
agenda?
now,
Thank you for that, Don.
Move the agenda.
public comment. Do you have any public comment? So we close
We don't have
public
public
comment.
anymore.
Go on to comments, city council comments.
Saturday's meeting, I have heard from people who attended nothing but great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was an amazing meeting. We got a lot accomplished, I think. And people were just really, really pleased with how it went from start to finish.
It was a
Great,
good.
thank you.
Yeah,
Good.
that was
Yeah.
That was
well
worthwhile.
done.
Thank you.
Well, I suggest that we have at least another one, not just one a year, just
Yeah.
because it does help us bring,
Right.
The
it
community
brings us
in.
all together, because then we know what the heck we're talking about. Primarily,
Yeah,
us here, the
serve
council. we-
food and you
yeah.
get more people.
Yeah, there's more people included, we'll get more input, so, yeah.
No, that's
That was
great.
good.
Yeah,
very
that was
good.
really
Thank you,
good.
Don.
Good
No, that was
location,
productive.
too.
So it was very
Yeah.
good.
Did the
I
library.
have one other comment I need to talk about that is not related to our workshop. And I've received, in the last month or two, I've received quite a few comments about a kind of a somewhat dangerous intersection at the corner of Donner and Third Street. As you're coming up Donner from Creek Bridge, it's a rather steep little hill, and you can't see the cars coming in from the new Rancho Vista subdivision, or I won't say you can't see, it's hard to see. And so several people have expressed that they've had near misses on a car fender bender or whatever. And also, that part of Third Street narrows down to a single lane. And I've noticed a lot of people coming through from Rancho Vista run the stop sign at the corner of 3rd and North, and I mean, they don't even slow down. It's, you know, and that goes back to lack of police or traffic enforcement, whatever
Yeah.
word you want to use, but, you know, and this is in broad daylight, this isn't.
Oh, no, I know, I've
it's-
seen it, yeah. I've been there.
I've seen people go down First
Yeah.
Street the wrong way.
Well, there's
Yeah.
several intersections in town that people don't stop, you
Yeah.
know, coming off the hill from the Slesnik's house down there, under the
Yeah.
underpass, they never stop there. The guy that lives there in the little pink house, he came over to my house and knocked on my door. He goes, you're city councilman, he goes, I need you to take care of that. They never stop there. People just ramp, you know.
Yeah.
And both ways, both, because I know I've been stop sign and I had people just,
They don't wait.
Same thing
They
with
don't
truck
wait.
traffic. Don't pay attention
But
to
that's at
stop
least a two-way
signs.
street. See, 3rd Street in this area where I'm talking about is only a single lane wide.
Single lane wide.
And we're getting more and more traffic from the Rancho Vista people now, joining the traffic from Creek Bridge, going down to Windmill or wherever they're going, Donia's, and
Close it
And they're not
off.
stopping.
Close it off.
Okay, all right.
can't, how are you gonna get out of there?
City manager, do you have any comments?
No, I'm glad Saturday was worthwhile.
City attorney? Okay, so, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
second,
Adjourned.
all in favor? Gotta take a vote.
You don't need a vote on that. 8:07. 8:07. Laura, thank you so much. Thank you.